Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. How is everybody this week? Hope everybody's doing good. I can't believe it's been a month since Ian hit. Feels like such a long time ago, and yet not even that long at all. It's still crazy. They're still doing relief at volunteerflorida.org and the Red Cross, so either of those, check it out. Also, blood donations are still a huge thing. I know One Blood's going around a lot doing donations, so you can always hit them up. I am kind of surprised at the poll results of this week. I thought that at least somebody would disagree that St. Augustine was not the most haunted city in Florida. Somebody did on the Instagram, but Facebook was pretty unanimous, and minus one person on Instagram, everybody's pretty in agreement that St. Augustine's pretty well the most haunted. I, having lived there, can absolutely 1,000% agree with that. That being said, thank you to everybody who has interacted with the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok pages. You guys are awesome. I saw a lot of new followers on both the TikTok and the Facebook pages, so thank you guys. And as always, you can tag me on Instagram so I can share your awesome photos around Florida. I would really appreciate it. I can't thank you guys enough for that. It really does help make the podcast successful. And if you have a second, I really would appreciate a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It just helps to get the podcast out to the masses. Thanks for coming back for another week. You really appreciate it. And since we are almost at the end of October, and it feels like October has just completely flown by, we're going to embrace the spooky season this year. So I'm going to do Spooky Florida. That's right. Haunted Florida part, I think we're on 3. And since Florida has so many years of history beyond what is documented, it's not surprising that, people and things just kind of stuck around. I mean, we all like it, and we're not the only ones. So the first place I want to tell you guys about is the Sugar Mill Ruins in New Smyrna Beach. The area that the mill is on has a long history. The sugar mill was actually productive for only 5 years, up until the Seminole War. The Native Americans in the area headed out for the mill and sought to destroy it. And of course, by the time that they knew they were going to destroy it, help was sent to help the problems in the area, but you know what? They didn't make it in time for the sugar mill, and then that kind of led up to the Seminole War. But the sugar mill was pretty much destroyed and left for ruin, and you can actually see it pretty much in one of the same conditions it was left in today. Now, the grounds around the mill have an interesting history beyond just that sugar mill. The late 1800s saw the ground become a campground for a traveling circus. So, Seminole War, ruins. Now a traveling circus is going to use it as kind of a campground, and the circus set up their tents in the large fields around the mill. And the grounds have said to become pretty unsettled just from all the violence and nature, and Florida goes through a lot, so it's not surprising that there are some unsettled spirits in this area. People have heard disembodied voices, laughter, seen shadows running around the property, and heard things move around. Okay, this one just... People have seen clown figures and demented figures on the property. I didn't believe that. I was like, there's no way. This is not right. And then I really investigated it, and yes, there is a clown figure seen around the ruins of the sugar mill. And, I mean, the history of the property is a dark one. You had the slave labor, you had the wars, you had sadness, you had hurricanes, so it doesn't really surprise me that these things have stuck around. And you actually can still visit these mill ruins today. The ruins are on the National Register of Historic Places, and there's a campground next to the ruins where you can enjoy this part of Florida. However, I'm not so sure that I would want to. Seems a bit... I mean, clowns on their own, but then a spirit clown? That's just asking for a little too much for me. The next place I want to talk about is super cute, super quaint, and also apparently super haunted. I'm talking about the Island Hotel on Cedar Key. This historic hotel is a wonderful place to stay and apparently never leave. The hotel is actually beautiful. If you look at the pictures of this place, it is so welcoming and so gorgeous and beautiful, but it has such a long history that it's not surprising that some people have never left. The hotel was actually started as a general store in the 1850s, and of course, not long after the 1850s, we had the Civil War, and the hotel was actually used by the Union soldiers in the Civil War until it was taken over by the Confederates. And, of course, after the war, it went back to being a general store. And not surprisingly, because it is Florida, the area was actually almost completely destroyed in 1896 by a hurricane. But the building stood. It was damaged, but it stood. Because the building is made up from 12-inch thick walls, oak supports, and seashell tabby, which is a type of building supply, the building has actually been able to withstand a lot of storms, hurricanes. They've lost the roof. They've had feet of water come flooding through it, but the building still stands. In fact, the building hasn't even changed much since its days as a general store. They did add a bar where the mural of King Neptune and his court decorate the wall to make it King Neptune's Lounge. And so that's kind of a fun draw for that hotel. But the hotel is nice and welcoming, and they believe that 13 people felt so welcomed that they never left. The first ghost I'm going to talk about of the hotel is a sad one. It's a little boy. And the little boy was actually one that worked at the general store. The manager said that, so the story goes, the manager thought they saw the little boy put something in their pocket. He thought he was going to steal it. And the manager got upset and chased the little boy out the door. And the little boy was never seen after that day. And, of course, rumors went around about the manager, but it was never proven. And so they were cleaning out the cistern a year later, and they actually found the skeletal remains in the cistern. They think that the little boy was so scared of the manager that he climbed in the cistern where he couldn't get out and he drowned. And they say that you can still see that scared little boy in the basement from time to time. I don't know, y'all. Children ghost. Oof. It's kind of a sad, scary, just all in one. But the little boy is not the only ghost in this hotel. The hotel is also home to a ghost of a Southern soldier that stands guard on the second floor. He's actually the most seen ghost of the hotel. People usually report seeing him. He's usually seen at the balcony doors at sunrise, and it's not surprising when people see him. It's almost a daily occurrence. The old hotel manager, Simon Feinberg, is also said to be a wandering ghost in this hotel, and he appears to staff and guests. They think he's continuing on with his job. They say a spirit of a murdered prostitute is also said to have stuck around. They believe she was murdered during the Prohibition time when the hotel was a speakeasy and a brothel. They say she's shy but friendly. The ghost is said to sit in the middle of the bed at night, kiss people on the cheek, and then leave behind a slight haze. So she's still trying to do her job. The hotel is also home to people who have recently left this world. Bessie Gibbs actually lived in the hotel for 26 years and is said to come around and move furniture. She seems to really enjoy locking guests out of their rooms when they step out for a moment, and she has appeared to many different guests as she walks through their room. She really, really likes room 29. They actually did a seance at this hotel because there were so many guests and they wanted to see what was going on. They really wanted to talk to Bessie when they held the seance, but that wasn't exactly the results they got. They were actually surprised to show that it was definitely haunted, and that's where they think that they spoke to at least 13 different spirits. But of course, the most dominant ghost is Bessie. They also discovered that there are spirits of 2 Native Americans, a fisherman, and an unidentified man who also call the hotel home. The hotel has been known to have lights that flicker on and off, doors open and close by themselves, cold spots, breezes, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. So, if you're looking for a nice place to stay with the possibility of meeting someone from the past, then you're definitely going to want to check out this hotel on quaint Cedar Key. You never know, maybe you'll see the Southern soldier, or maybe you'll even meet Bessie. Just maybe ask nicely for her to not lock you out of your room. Do you think that it's possible for trees to be the center of hauntings or bad energy? I'm really asking. I don't know how I feel about this. The next story I'm going to tell you is about a tree. And I guess I think that the earth can hold on to bad energy, but I don't know. I know there's other reports of trees being haunted or cursed or something, but I don't know about this one. I just don't know how I feel. It's Bulow Creek State Park, and apparently it's possible. The park is home to one of the oldest and most magnificent live oaks in all of Florida. This state park sits right outside of Flagler Beach, Florida, and the tree is named Fairchild Oak. Now, the oak was actually named in honor of David Fairchild, who was a well-known botanist in Florida. And if you've listened to some of my recent podcasts about southern Florida, you've probably heard his name come up a couple times. Now, this oak is over 70 feet tall with limbs that stretch 300 feet across. They think that the tree is somewhere between 400 and 600 years old. And of course, the tree has stood the test of time. Storms, hurricanes, wars, fires, droughts, and of course, development in the area have all threatened this tree at some point. All of that also includes humans. Now, the legend around the tree is that 2 of the previous owners of the land the tree stood on were rumored to suffer tragic deaths near the tree. Now, the first was James Ormond II. He actually owned the plantation on the land where the tree stands, and you can actually still see these ruins in the Bulow, I'm probably saying that wrong, but I think it's Bulow Plantation Ruins Historic State Park. And they aren't sure if he killed himself or was killed at the base of this ancient tree. There's not really a lot. It's a really mysterious death, and I tried to dig in deeper to really find out, but they just discovered him dead at the base of this tree. The second death was Norman Harwood. He purchased the land in 1880, and he was actually probably not on the up and up. He was actually attempting to outrun debtors in Minnesota when he bought the land. And he started to grow sugarcane and oranges on the land, but he didn't make friends in the town or his neighbors. And the story goes is that Harwood actually hanged himself from one of the branches of the oak because his large life insurance would take care of his family. So that is 2 deaths attributed to this tree, or near this tree. I don't know if that still makes it a cursed tree or a haunted tree. Now, however, they say you can see a ghostly figure of a man around this tree. You can also see spirits of Seminole Indians roaming the grounds looking for more places to burn down. You can hear voices on the trails in the parks and around the tree when no one is around. So I guess if you hear someone calling your name, it's best not to turn around and look. Maybe no one there. Bulow State Park and Historic Ruins are both beautiful parks, and they're definitely worth visiting to see the beauty of the area. This tree alone sounds magnificent, definitely one you'd want to check out, just based on the fact that it is such an ancient tree, and I'm sure it's got many stories to tell. And if you do go see this tree and you do want to hear its stories, maybe just don't stay too late. You never know what else will tell you its own story. The next place I'm going to talk to you guys about is an inn that you can actually still stay at in Gulfport. And Gulfport's just near South Pinellas County, near St. Pete. It's Gulfport's Historic Peninsula Inn, and this inn was built in 1905, and it has a very long history for only being built in 1905. The inn actually started out as the Bayview Hotel, which was a 40-room building. And the hotel became a hospital during both World War I and World War II. And after the wars, the inn reopened as Cedars of Sinai after World War II, which was a rehabilitation hospital for injured veterans. The property then changed into a caretaking facility until the 1980s when they closed their doors. So the inn sat vacant for some time, but in 2016, it was brought new life. 2016 is when the Gulfport Historic Peninsula Inn now calls the building home. And they're not the only people who call it home. The current owner actually believes that since there's illness and death likely have occurred on the property, that some people have never left. The spirits that haunt the property don't feel malicious and are actually usually friendly. You can hear them more than see them. It's normal to hear phantom knocks or footsteps, items falling from shelves, or a feeling of someone sitting on your bed in the middle of the night. Oh, that's really creepy to me. People have felt phantom hands gently touch their shoulders in a comforting manner, and they have actually captured EVPs in the inn, and they usually say it's a male voice. Now, they do know that a woman named Isabella has been seen running down the 3rd floor hallway between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. I don't know where they got Isabella. I tried to look it up. I cannot find Isabella, but apparently she likes to visit the 3rd floor hallway between 4 and 5 a.m. And you can hear her running from the 2nd floor, like below. But if you're on the 3rd floor, you have no idea anything's going on. That alone's kind of weird to me. Ugh. They think that there are multiple spirits in the inn that have just never left due to the fact that it was a rehabilitation and a caretaking facility. I can understand both of those. They do testify that they do seem to be friendly as they roam the halls, move things around, and enjoy the inn just as much as the people do today. Now, the last place I'm going to talk about has a really, really dark history. It's absolutely haunted. There's no way around it. And I've even seen it for myself. And I'm talking about the old jail in St. Augustine. I mean, yeah, the whole city's haunted, but this place really takes the cake. This has got some bad energy. And I even know a lot of people who have visited this place during the day and still experience terrible stuff. But at night, man, at night the jail comes alive. The jail was actually financed by Henry Flagler and constructed in 1891, and it served as the St. Johns County Jail until 1953, where it has now become a roadside attraction. You can actually visit the jail and tour it both day and night. The jail is on the National Register of Historic Places as of 1987. I've actually talked to people who didn't realize that this place was an actual jail. A lot of people thought it was just an attraction built as a jail. No, this is a jail. This is a jail where people died. This is a real jail. There are just horror stories from this jail. The jail was actually originally built to hold 72 prisoners, and they had a general population area, a woman's area, a maximum security area, and a death row for those condemned to die. 8 men were actually hung from the gallows in the jail. Yes, those gallows that you probably walked around at the attraction. Yes, people died there. The jail didn't have the greatest of conditions, so it's not surprising that people have stuck around. Baths were never allowed, toilets were shared buckets, beds were infested with termites and cots and lice and who knows what else. Prisoners didn't get enough food and would often catch rodents to supplement their meals. Prisoners were also used as cheap labor in the form of a chain gang. That's why if you drive past this or walk past it, there is a chain gang out front. And you will see people who work there walking around in the black and white striped outfits. Inmates usually didn't last longer than 2 years in this jail before they either died of infection, violence, illness, malnutrition, or were one of those poor 8 souls who were hanged there. And the hangings weren't always on death row. Suicide was very high in this jail. But either way, it was an escape from the hellhole they were currently in. And hangings on death row at this jail were usually inefficient, and people would struggle for hours before dying. So even when they were trying to put them out of their misery, they still didn't succeed very well with that. Now, staff and visitors have reported so much paranormal activity in this area. It's just the whole jail is just active. There's no other way to describe it. And the spirits aren't nice. People have been scratched, punched, shoved downstairs, heard their names being called, disembodied voices, seen shadows, had their hair pulled. I mean, you name it. I've heard everything. It's normal to walk through the jail and be touched or grabbed. And this is also still during the daytime. Although, the creepiest report to me, and I have talked to friends who've seen this, is that there's a report of a figure crawling on the floor of the main cell block, and it's even gotten the nickname the Crawler. Now, if I'm standing there and I can see that there's a differentiating shadow, and this shadow is coming from nowhere, and it's crawling on the floor for me, y'all, I'm gone. That's a nope. I am not about that. That's up there with kid ghosts for me. That's not gonna be for... Jody's not going to that one. Sorry. And they say the worst place is solitary. People are actually challenged to sit in the corner of solitary cell by themselves, and most people have claimed to see a shadow figure lurking towards them. The figure seems to try and tear at people, and those who don't see it often find scratch marks later on themselves. No one usually escapes solitary without some kind of story. They think it's either going to be Sim Jackson, who was hanged in 1908 after killing his wife with a straight razor, or Charlie Powell, who was arrested for beheading a man for spreading rumors about his wife. People also think that there's something far more sinister in these walls of this jail from the collective leftover feelings of everybody who passed through. The jail was filled with cruelty, desperation, evil, hatred, savagery, and many other emotions that have just added to this, none of which are happy. I mean, the jail itself is just a sad place, but then you add all these raw emotions and you just get activity. There's no other way to put it. I can tell you that this is one location. It doesn't matter the time of day you visit here. They're going to be there, and they're going to try and talk to you, and they're going to tell you that they're still there. I have visited the jail. I have walked past the jail. all hours of the day and night, because I used to live right downtown from it, and that's where I would pass by to go to downtown. And I can tell you that this place does not evoke happy feelings. It always felt like there was bad energy, and it always felt like something was watching you. Even when there were a million people, tourists, getting on the trolleys or going in the shops, it just didn't feel right. I actually have a friend that worked at the jail as one of the tour guides on the night ghost tours. And hearing some of his stories were enough to know that things aren't right here. He was actually the one that gave me the idea to even tell this, because I had asked for ghost stories, and he sent me one of his. He said that people would run off from the tours, refuse to go any further, take pictures, and instantly show them. He also said that in working at the jail, he actually got to hear other stories from other parts of St. Augustine that were haunted. And that alone was really cool. So I know that St. Augustine is haunted, and I know that the jail is haunted. And if you ever want to know that you're not alone, visit the jail. But just be warned, guys, there are things you cannot unsee and unfeel. And the jail is just one of those places, like, the ghost tours are fun. You know, you walk around St. Augustine, and there's all kinds of ghost tours in St. Augustine. You can visit the pub tours, you can visit the jail, you can visit, just walking through the historical part. But the jail is just not one that I am willing to visit again. I did get a couple of listener submissions for the ghost stories for this episode, so thank you. Everybody agreed that I could share them, but not to share their names, so I understand that. The first one actually also comes out of St. Augustine, and it was a friend. He was working as a tour guide for one of the tours, and he was working in Scarlet. He was taking his group to Scarlet's, and he was visiting Scarlet's, and he said that he was trying to talk to his group, and they were upstairs, and it was loud, and he was trying to get everybody together, and he was telling them about Mr. Cooley and talking about the painting, and he turned and looked at this lady, and she just went pale white, and he couldn't figure out why, and he looked where she was looking, and all of a sudden, a stack of menus goes off the table, up in the air, and flips right back onto another set of table, as if someone was moving them from one place to another to be ready for something else. He said that lady instantly left his tour, and so did half of his tour group. I can believe it. I have been to Scarlet's. I have my own stories from Scarlet's. Nothing surprises me up there, although I am sad that Scarlet's is now closed. It does suck. I wonder what happened to Mr. Cooley and his long-lost heartache of home. But thank you for sharing that story. That's very interesting. Having been to Scarlet's, I can definitely see that happening. Another one I got was actually from right here in Tampa. I had a submission. They were in Ybor City, and they were walking through Ybor one night. Of course, if you've ever been to Ybor, you know Ybor really comes alive at night. And they were near the Cuban Club, and they kept seeing someone peek out the window. And it was almost like that this person was playing hide and seek with them, because they would look and see it, and then they would kind of duck away, and then they would look again to see if the person was still there, and then you kind of see them peeking around. And, of course, I think I've talked about the Cuban Club on Haunted. I know I talked about it on Tampa, and that doesn't surprise me. The Cuban Club in Ybor is very haunted, and I know that there's a couple different ghosts in there. One of a little boy who drowned in the swimming pool, which is a sad one, and of a woman. So who knows? Maybe the kid was just playing, was just deciding to talk to you. So thank you for sending that story in. I've walked through Ybor many times. I've seen the Cuban Club. Unfortunately, I've never gotten to go there to that part at night to actually see it. I would have loved to have been able to experience something like that. So thank you. The next submission I got was from South Florida. It's actually from a friend. They were talking, this one goes more along over the Skunk Ape, but this is still a cool submission nonetheless, and it's still paranormal. They were talking how they used to go camping out towards the Everglades, and they would go fishing, and they would go camping over towards kind of just south of Lake Okeechobee, and that they would hear things in the woods, not natural things, like horrible screams, and they never could find it. They would go, why would you go looking for it? That's my question. Why would you leave your little campsite to go look for whatever's screaming? Sorry. But anyways, they would hear screams, and they would go looking for it, thinking if it was somebody hurt or something, and they never could find anything. But every time that they would hear it, it would always sound closer. So that's a no. If I hear a scream and I'm camping at night, I am instantly getting in my car and I am noping out. That is not for Jody. So thank you for sharing that. I have talked about the Swamp Ape and about especially like the Lake Okeechobee hurricane in that area. You know, it doesn't surprise me that that area is haunted, that there's probably still spirits around and roaming. It's that part of Florida has also had a pretty interesting history. So thank you for sharing that one. I really appreciate it. And the last one is from another friend. They were staying in Miami they didn't tell me which hotel. They just said one of the nicer hotels. So I said, okay, I'm not going to argue, but thank you for sharing your story. They said that they were staying in Miami near one of the nicer hotels near South Beach, and that they would see people walking down the hall in front of them out of the corner of their eye, but every time they would go to look, that they would never nobody was there. They had this happen a couple times the few nights that they stayed. And that doesn't surprise me. I think Miami also has a history. You know, it's mobsters, couple gangs, couple Seminoles. And so it doesn't surprise me that Miami would have lingering spirits. It also has a very long history, and especially with also its storms and, close calls with hurricanes like Hurricane Andrew. It doesn't surprise me that Miami would have hauntings. No, I can't say that one surprises me either. So I thank you guys who shared that. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to hear other listeners' ghost stories, especially of the paranormal. I can say that none of them surprise me, especially not the one in St. Augustine or Tampa. I can say that I never want to camp near the Everglades after hearing that story again. And now I really want to go search in Miami to see which haunted hotels are down there. So thank you guys for adding to my haunted Florida spooky season. I really appreciate it. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing about these dark past, some spots where the Sunshine State isn't quite so sunny. And of course, the Sunshine State is full of that dark history and things that they're not proud of. And Florida man, Sunshine State is just full of Florida man, you guys. Today's Florida man actually comes to us from Boynton Beach. The man was seen driving around the neighborhood wearing only red shorts with wires attached to his penis. Why? Nobody knows. But this is how he was found. And the man was found by cops, and he refused to be arrested. He fought it. He was eventually taken into custody, and his mugshot is fantastic, you guys. His mugshot, he had 2 black eyes, stitches, and scrapes on his face. Police never actually confirmed how he got his injuries, but this man was driving around the neighborhood with wires attached to his penis in a neighborhood where children lived, probably doing nasty things. So I don't really care how he got his injuries, and I'm totally okay with how his mugshot looked. But that is today's Florida man. A dark, dark Florida man who just doesn't need to see the light of day. Thank you guys for listening. I hope that you have you've enjoyed spooky season up to this point. I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween or Samhain or All Hallows Eve or Dia de los Muertos, whatever you guys decide to celebrate. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day doing it. I hope that if you're recovering from Ian, that recovery is still going well, and just know that the rest of Florida is with you. I hope you all have a great week. Don't forget to drink your water. Please stay hydrated. Please be nice to one another. And as always, guys, that's your daily dose of sunshine.